In the wake of the appointment of Major General Olufemi Olatubosun Oluyede as acting chief of army staff, many Nigerians have taken to social media to share mixed reactions. The presidency, in a statement, said Oluyede will hold sway as the chief of army staff pending the return of Lieutenant General Torid Lagbaja, who is said to be indisposed and is receiving treatment abroad. Let's take some reactions. This is from Trading, who wrote, "Why is the army playing politics? They clearly said in their press release, for the record, there is no such appointment in the armed forces of Nigeria. That acting appointment is political and unconstitutional." Well, Eniola wrote, "What's going on? General Oluyede is not the most senior army officer in the country, and yet Tinubu has named him acting chief of army staff, while the current chief of army staff, General Lagbaja, has not been removed. Will General Oluyede issue orders to General Ibrahim, who is his senior?" Well, another Twitter user, there goes, "This only shows the true meaning of a Milokan. This is a turn-by-turn political and governance philosophy. The ethnic trend in appointment is not good for the growth and development of the Nigerian socio-economic coherence. In my opinion, regionalism will have been the best." Well, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has hailed the Nigerian armed forces for their dedication and sacrifice in securing the nation, shared a clip on X on Wednesday of the luncheon of the 2025 Armed Forces of Nigeria Remembrance Day emblem and appeal fund at the council chamber at the State House in Abuja, saying that the welfare of our men and women in the armed forces will continue to be the government's top priority.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, the task before you this morning is solemn, noble, reflective, deeply emotional, and historical.
Let me first of all thank the armed forces. No matter what economic theory we propagate or postulate, if we have no security, you cannot promote peace and development. It is a great honor for me to once again launch the emblem to raise necessary reform. And we continue to assure that the welfare of our men and women of the armed forces will continue to be our topmost priority.
Well, all right, Rufai. I think it's great that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has honored the armed forces in the manner that he's done. We have been, using this Remembrance Day emblem to support our troops. It's great that he's done that. But you had the reactions of Nigerians as to the appointment of the new COS, the Chief of Army Staff. What are your thoughts on that?
Oji, it's apt what President Tinubu, has done. His launch days. In fact, once I get back to Nigeria myself, I can't wait to buy my puppy and we'll all wear it proudly like we normally do every year in support of the military, because we're really proud of what they have constantly done for this country. And we know that the sovereignty of this country has been because of largely the efforts of the military fighting to keep us one, which we're excited about, and we salute them every time. But going back to the confusion I have as regards what's happening to General Torid Lagbaja, the truth has to be said, Oji. I've seen a lot of comments. People are saying things like, there's somebody senior to the new acting, chief of army staff there. It's the president's prerogative. Once the president has an acting chief of army staff, if he confirms that chief of army staff, then definitely everybody that is senior to him will be retired for the job. It has happened before. If you remember during the time of Burutai, there were people that were senior to Burutai that once Brutai was picked, those people had to be retired. But secondly, the confusion is what is really going on. Like I've been asking all morning, that it is the same army that told us that, oh, there's no need for any acting, chief of army staff, that somebody will stand in his stead till it gets better. Are they telling us with this now that Taoreed Lagbaja is not going to come back? Is there something they know that we do not know? And that's why we are asking for more assurances and everything. I've also seen comments of a lot of people saying, oh, we should respect his privacy at this point. See, once you decide to do a public job, you lose your access to privacy. Once you decide to do a public job, let's not do ourselves, you lose your access to privacy. Yes, we respect people's privacy when they are not feeling well and all of that, but because it's a public concern. If General Lagbaja is not a public concern, we will not be worried about his health. I mean, there are many people that are sick. Anybody can fall ill, but we're not worried about them. But because he's the chief of army staff, and that's why the information must with more information, so that we can tackle the purveyors of fake news. What is wrong with General Lagbaja? Why the need for getting an acting? Are they preempted as not going to come back? As President Tinubu moved on, what is really happening that we do not know? And you see, I want to tell all the stakeholders, you can't hide anything for so long. In no time, all of this will come out. Because all of this look very confusing and very fishy to me. They need to be able to tell us the truth. Because you see, if we now finally discover what is going on ourselves, discover the nature of his illness, what is happening to him ourselves, then it removes the trust we ought to have for the military. Don't forget, this same military at first denied that General Lagbaja was sick in the first place. They said he was away on holidays. After newspaper had reported it, then they now finally confirmed that he was out on a sick leave. And these are the things that make us not to believe the government sometimes. And when we say that the government, are the ones that even pervade some of this fake news sometimes. Do you know how many tweets the likes of Mr. Bayon Onuga have had to delete because of all of this? Anyway, that's straight bullet. Sorry for that, Mr. Bayon Onuga. But they need to get us the truth. We need to hear the truth of what is happening.
On fire, you're always on point. I mean, that's the truth. Mr. Bayon Onuga has deleted a lot of tweets. Well, we have to commend the army, Ayo Vimbai, and this is the story. Well, in Kaduna, Dr. Ganiat Bokwola was abducted on December 27th alongside her husband and nephew, has been released by her abductors. Her husband was released in March following discussions with the abductors. Bokwola and her nephew remained in captivity. Well, news of her release have been celebrated, especially across the health sector. Back in August, the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors embarked on a nationwide, warning strike over her abduction. But again, the conversation is, how did this happen? Was it the military? Was it the police? What was the negotiation? Was ransom paid?
Well, no, since ransom is illegal, nobody is ever going to say that ransom was paid. But I mean, this is a bigger conversation about what's going on with security in the country. And, just off of the bat of, the appointment of an acting chief of army staff, I think we're all in agreement that the situation right now calls for it. There's no room for a vacuum at the moment. We all know what's happening with Shiroro Kaduna and the transmission power lines that have left most of the north in darkness. Yesterday, the Minister of Power was addressing the Senate, and he was talking about how those bandits are still even threatening the contractors that they are sending in to do the repairs. You have a story from Niger State, where the Niger State House Assembly actually came and said that they claimed that one of the military camps had been overrun by bandits. Well, the army has since come to debunk it and said none of their camps has been overrun by bandits or terrorists, whatever you want to call them. But the truth of the matter is that 23 communities in that area have actually been displaced. These are farming communities. That's one situation. There's another situation in Kogi State, I believe, where there are reported to be gunmen. I'll get the name of the local government area in Kogi State, where Bassa, local government area, where gunmen are said to be running rampant. There are kidnappings. The security situation is alarming. So we thank God that this doctor has been rescued. But then what about those people who are faceless and nameless currently, who are battling with banditry, terrorism, whatever you want to call it? There's a dire situation on our hands. So it's impossible to say that we're going to pay ransom. You can't possibly pay for ransom for everybody. This situation just needs needs to be confronted head on, because it seems like our security situation has escalated.
Well said, Bimbai. I mean, as much as we honor the army, we charge them to return our Nigerians that have been abducted and held in captivity back home. We'll take another story. On Wednesday, the Senate confirmed the 7 ministerial nominees recently appointed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The nominees were confirmed after a hearing was held on the floor of the Senate. Well, during the hearing, the appointees spoke on how they intend to use their offices for the good of Nigerians. Well, Bianca Ojukwu, who was appointed Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, said she would work to ensure that Nigerian mission buildings abroad are in good condition.
As ambassador to the Kingdom of Spain, I spent an entire year in one hotel room because when I got to Spain, the mission building was in such an appalling condition. Together with very dedicated officers, we conducted the massive renovation works, not just on the mission building itself, giving Nigeria an edifice truly deserving of a nation of its standing.
Well, congratulations, Bianca Ojukwu, and all the 7 ministers that have been appointed in the ministerial nominee session held yesterday was 4 hours, and you know, different things happened there. And I'll tell you the story. Well, Bianca, who was an ex-beauty queen, caused a frenzy as she appeared before the senators for her screening. Well, Senate President Godswill Akpabio, who had to stop Senator representing Tinubu West from praising her beauty, but restrict himself to her resume. Let's take a look.
Mr. President, the beautiful nominee standing before us.
I said restrict yourself
it is in the
to the resume. Forget
Mr. President.
Forget this word beautiful. I said restrict yourself.
It's in the CV, sir.
Restrict yourself. She didn't put in the CV that she's beautiful. Is that what she put? Where?
It's in the CV.
Where? The CV says beautiful Bianca.
Mr. President.
Beautiful Bianca. But the senators are saying that it was in her CV, which I highly doubt. I mean, come on, I thought that was good, but it was comic relief. But at the same time, there's this sort of chauvinism that goes on in the house.
Yes, I know men like to think that whenever you say woman is beautiful, she should accept it as a compliment and being kind. But sometimes, especially when it's in such a serious atmosphere like this, or a serious proceeding, sometimes a woman wants to be acknowledged for what she brings to the table, as opposed to just what it looks like. He wasn't the only one that said. Senator Victor Ome actually said he advised her to tone down her beauty when she was coming. And I know she hears this a lot. It's
tone down her beauty.
Yes, because she's too beautiful. So when she's coming, and don't women face this a lot of times, when sometimes you have to prove yourself that you're more than a pretty face. I remember there was even a challenge. There was a whole campaign around being more than a pretty face, because sometimes you want your achievements, the things you've done to come on the, to be discussed rather than your beauty. Yes, beauty is an advantage and you cannot deny what is obvious. But I think it's more important the fact that, number one, she talked about, she's a lawyer by training, then she's also been a diplomat, and the investments, the upgrade to the missions abroad and what she plans to do. I wish that's what they concentrated more on. I know it was time for comic relief, but there's a thin line between comic relief and objectifying women just because of what, their looks. Sometimes you just say, you're so beautiful. That's not what we came here for. But you cannot, congratulations, Mrs. Bianca Odinaka Odumegu Ojukwu, for acing this and bringing to the table more than your beauty, but your brains. And to all the other women as well, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who was, oh my goodness, under I watched it yesterday, and I found it was so detailed. They kept asking, and I love that they were almost fascinated by her intelligence, by her expertise, by her experience, master's, first degree at University of Lagos in law, master's at Oxford University, PhD at Stanford Law in law. So, I mean, come on, look at that. She's a beautiful woman as well, but we concentrate more on what I don't think they spoke to any of the men. Handsome man. What did you what did he? So I think there's a thin line. We don't want to take away the compliment, but there's a thin line. Let's begin to focus on what women as what they bring intellectually to the table and their experience and expertise.
I love that. And I also loved her input on what she wants to do with her, her ministry, her commission. And she talked about, having to go around Spain and seeing these dilapidated buildings. And I think that it's so apt. Like, I mean, while I was in New York, I'd go to, some of those houses and I'm like, okay, this needs some upgrade. Representation of us out there. Rufai, your thoughts on Bianca Ojukwu's appointment?
For me, that lawmaker, you are eyeing Baba's wife, Baba Ojukwu's wife. We will take you on, no? You are eyeing another man's wife. We'll take you on, no? But apart from that, I think we have a societal problem. It's skewed towards women, but I've also seen women that also do it to men. For them, it's about the outward appearance. Oh, yeah, Bianca was a former beauty queen, but at that point in time, it was not about her being a beauty queen or her being beautiful. It was about pertinent matters of state, which I think should be the part of the questions. And, I mean, when you look at it critically, we're constantly missing the baby, throwing the baby with the bathwater. A woman comes for a very important screening like that. The first thing you can say is, the beautiful Bianca. No. It's how is she going to help with Nigeria foreign relations? She also said something. She said, as an ambassador to Spain, she had to stay in a hotel for over 1 year because of the dilapidated structure. The question is, how do we have fixed that problem? What did she do to fix that problem? Why did she need to stay at the expense of Nigerian government? Because I know if they had fixed the dilapidated structure, she would not need to stay in that hotel for a year. So we see a level of waste, but because the structures were dilapidated. And when you check Nigerian embassies all over the world, most of them are in poor state. So I would have thought that we would have critically asked, the very salient question, rather than say, oh, he's a beautiful person, he's a fine boy. And for Ayo's case too, we have seen women too. I think there was a case in the Senate or something, one of the House of Parliament, where a top female senator was admiring a man too like that. So the truth has to be said. It's a societal thing we need to move away from, and we need to bring about critical rigor in our national development. Another thing, I didn't see enough rigor in the questioning process. The lawmakers used to complain that, because they have to attach portfolios to them, that they can't ask very good questions. Now that most of these people are coming in with portfolios attached, we did still see a lot of that rigor. And it behoves on the National Assembly to be able to do better. The question is, what is even the selection process of people that get to the National Assembly? It speaks volumes. It speaks volumes of the leadership selection process. That when you have a National Assembly that's supposed to scrutinize and ask questions, is it what we resort to? So it shows that we have a holistic societal problem. And really, we are not ready. When we are ready, we'll fix our problem. We see a lot of sentiments become the order of the day in this country.
All right, Vimbai, the floor is yours. Your thoughts on the screening process and
very quickly, everything that needs to be said has been said, I believe. But I just wanted to highlight Bianca Ojukwu's CV. After all, because yes, of course, she was the most beautiful girl in Nigeria, and I also don't want to amplify too much this moment because, like they said, it was in the CV apparently, even if it wasn't really in the CV. But she was MBG, and then it's part of who she is. It's part of her profile. Yes. So I wanted to kind of just brush it off also because I think God has kind of proved time and time again that he has a strange sense of humor, right? So, the things he finds funny often, I don't think he plays it out in his head before it comes out of his mouth. I think he kind of lets it out. Lately, though, I think he's been showing a lot of restraint, but he is one man who's known to kind of just speak. Yes. And then later realize that, okay, this is what I just said, and then because he's a little bit older, thinks he can laugh it off. But the way he does his life
this one, I will commend him from that. Saying, listen, restrict yourself. restrict yourself from just referring to her as just a beauty queen. You know, tell us what her resume is. What has she done? What did, you know, so that we can screen her properly. So for this one, kudos to Akpabio and for what she did.
Uncommon senator.
Uncommon senator. Uncommon senator showed how uncommon he was at the floor of the Senate. Well, following weeks or